everybody. How is it going? I think we've got everybody on the line. Can you guys hear me just before we discover that?
Yeah, you're good, Corey. You're good.
Everybody can hear me. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. I know it's been a little while since we had a chance to speak. As you can imagine, it's been very much a all hands on deck. There's obviously a few familiar faces here, but you may not recognize Hannah, who's joining us. If Hannah can give everyone a wave. Hannah is now leading for us on product and making sure we all do the things we're meant to do, often unsuccessfully, but definitely, as this gets ever more complex, it's a real pleasure to have Hannah sort of making sure that we manage between engineering, creative, and all the other things we need to get to do. So where are we and what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about a few things today. We're going to talk firstly about a little bit about sort of where we are. Then we're going to talk about Bootcamp. We're going to talk about teams. We're going to talk about some of the social campaign around teams, a bit about your player. It's about some of the risky games, and then we're going to get into some dates, which I'm sure you are all waiting for eagerly. And then we're going to lastly talk a little bit about tokenomics. I know there's been quite a few questions on that before we jump in with people's questions from the Discord channel and those who ask in YouTube. So why don't I kick off then with sort of saying sort of where we are. I think we're sort of about 7 weeks now, sort of post reveal, and everybody has got their characters. I know many of you have been accruing more characters than you know what to do with. For those of you with 50 plus characters, we spend a lot of time making sure we can make things as easy as possible for you. As you're going through the process with everything. You've obviously seen our new website, which I think is absolutely awesome. Big shout out to James, as one of the members who's been supporting us there on doing that. And just as soon as we finished that, we said, let's do Web 2.0. So look forward to that in the coming weeks as we continually strive to make that better. You've obviously seen the map, just saw the video for those who tuned in right at the start. Players getting out onto the pitch. We're sort of starting to get pretty close to being ready. And I hope all of you have had a chance to read the comic, the origin story. I think a great story that I'm sure many of us can identify with, of leaving behind Ella leaving behind her dead-end job to go after something new. Ironically, actually, the boss is called Mr. Green, which is Tom's last name, which I'm sure bears absolutely no resemblance to what it's like to work for. We'll maybe talk a little bit about sort of what's more to come from the narrative side of things as we get into some of the questions as well. But we're all here to talk about Bootcamp, and maybe like over to Tom to sort of lay the scene about what we're talking about over the next 6 weeks.
Thanks, Corey. So Bootcamp is a 7-week training program run by Professor Gaffer with 6 weekly challenges that we'll talk a little bit more about later. But the first thing to note about Bootcamp is it's a team game. So what does that mean? The kit that you choose for your player, that corresponds to the team that they're in. So there are 10 unique kits, but only 4 teams corresponding to the color or the predominant color of that kit. There are 4 things to note about the teams. The yellow kits are only available to the godlike skill tier. So they're like the Galacticos of the universe that we're in. We think it'll be pretty fun to have people ganging up on the godlike players, and can they survive the course with just 90 or so of them playing in one team. There'll be 2 prizes to win for the teams. One prize based on participation, and another prize based on achievement. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that works in a second. Excitingly, each team will have a team captain, and that'll be one of the 4 of us, as well as Adam. So you'll get to work with one of us, depending on what team you are in, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we're going to draw the captains in later on in this AMA. And then we're going to have a special Discord channel for each team, and we think there'll be quite a lot of fun that we can have by being part of our own tribe over the course of the next 7 weeks or so. Eleanor, do you want to say a little bit about how you've been imagining that coming together?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I'm very excited to get stuck into having the 4 teams as part of Bootcamp. We're definitely going to make sure that you are as well equipped as you can possibly be to represent all your team pride and make sure that you are showing your team to be the best one. So we'll be making sure that you've got like social assets, Twitter banners, anything that you might need to be able to show off which team you're in. We're also going to be kind of in the run up to that, and before you kind of make your decision, we'll make sure that you've seen some of the really cool kits that we've designed that will determine, as Tom said, that predominant color in your kit will determine which team you fall into. They're really cool. We're really proud of them. Rupert's been working super hard on them, and I think it's just showing another really great aspect of his artwork. So we'll be seeing those over the coming time period as well. And yes, I'm going to make sure that my team, whichever one I get, is going to be the one with all the coolest assets and all the coolest tools. I can't promise to share them with the other team captains. So yeah, looking forward to doing that and being the best team captain I can possibly be.
Great. Well, let's maybe jump in and talk a little bit about what claiming your player is going to mean. We're going to get into some of the mechanics of it slightly later. There's some quite cool stuff. I know Adam is ready to join us very shortly. But very shortly, in dates coming in just a few moments later, you'll be claiming your player and you'll be working alongside obviously one of the captains who'll be one of the founding team, and indeed I'm sure we'll be appointing a community co-captain to sit alongside us, where hopefully certain teams will be getting certain access to different information and so forth that may help them make different decisions about how they customize their character, or different boosts that might be available in each of the weekly challenges. So definitely something to drive quite a lot of kind of social and community engagement. But what we're really excited about is you claiming your player on Polygon, and we'll go into some of the mechanics around some of the stuff we're doing there to make it as user friendly as possible, including dripping Matic to you, for those who have never been on Polygon before, such that you can customize them and make your choices across a whole variety of different stats. Many of you will want to do your stats and agonize over it, and we'll be opening strategy channels in the Discord soon. But some of you may want to look to kind of different archetypes, and I'm sure we'll be talking about them. Whether you're kind of creating a pacey forward or a midfield general, as you kind of customize that player into the player that you think will be most successful over the course of the Bootcamp challenges. I think what's really exciting though is that, as you may have seen on the Mars map that many of you have checked out, there are 10 venues, but only 6 of them will be used during Bootcamp. So definitely something where listening to your captains and the information that they've got is going to be really important in ensuring that you make try and make the most optimal choice. And nothing is perfect, and for every decision you make, there'll be a trade-off elsewhere. But I think that's the kind of joy of these types of games, is making those kind of trade-offs and making choice feel meaningful. And that's certainly how it should feel over the course of the time together. I think then we're going to move into kind of playing the games, and very much there was a question in the Discord about this was are you it's kind of once per week challenge, and some of those games are relatively simple, so risk-based mechanics with options to go for guaranteed numbers of readies, which will allow you to get your skill boosts or attribute boosts, or taking kind of risks where you may get some advantages if you're a certain skill tier, or you have a certain quirk, or you have a certain rating in teamwork, or rating in passing, or whatever it might be, where you might risk it all and get nothing, or you might try and get some more in order to have more opportunity to either boost your player further at the end of Bootcamp, or sell those training boosts on the market to those people who are aggressively trying to upskill their team, ready to make sure that they are in the Premier League of the Martian Premier League as it comes forwards. I think what's really exciting though is that some of the games are not particularly simple or more complicated, including games that will involve social coordination between you in prisoner's dilemma, like challenges, assigned into A/B teams in making decisions about can you cooperate together or not, or do you end up with nothing? Certainly something that we know that I'm sure the community, if they're as nice as they are in Discord, will all cooperate, but let's see what the data says as we go through those games as well. And then also some quite interesting games where you are taking risks with how long you hold the ball for versus being tackled and what that might mean in terms of your token accrual. So we're really looking forward to, over the risky games, exploring both simple and complex games that are actually doing some quite novel on-chain dynamics. That hopefully they'll obviously be open source, and I'm sure will form the foundation of other things in the space to go forwards. But will give you a real sense of not only kind of making your own choices, but how your choices intersect with what other people choose. Ultimately, all trying to maximize both your individual return, but also your team return. Is the greens, reds, yellows, or black, in order to try and get those kind of maximum boosts possible, and the kind of big payoff of readies at the end as a team. So really excited to be doing that with you. That'll be on that kind of weekly cadence over the course of June as we get into the dates. And I think that's going to be really fun, and I'm sure there'll be some lucky people who manage to win every challenge, but I suggest that that probably won't be true for everybody. Is for every challenge you're good at, there might be one you're not necessarily as good at as your individual player. I guess with that then, I maybe hand over to Tom to sort of talk around some of the dates that I know there is a lot of dates chat coming from the chat, so maybe it'll be good to lay some stuff down there.
Well, super excited to announce that the bootcamp kicks off next week. So what we're going to do is have the founder captain draw on the 31st of May. That's Tuesday. You'll know which of us will be captaining which team. That should give you a bit of a heads up before player claim, which is happening on Saturday, the 4th of June. So that'll be the chance for you to claim your players, pick their kits, choose what team you're in, assign your skill points. That'll be a pretty fun day, and that obviously be open for a few days after the 4th of June. Then we'll spend that week strategizing as in our teams before the first risky game, which we intend to be on Saturday, the 11th of June. And we hope to keep to this Saturday cadence thereafter. One of the reasons for doing that is this sort of synchronous event is going to be quite crucial to our core game. So we want to test whether this mechanic works with everyone arranged into teams playing at the same time, or at least in the same window, and see how that goes week on week. As we get through the risky game challenges, you'll have both your individual ready accrual. You'll also be able to see how your team's performing week on week. And this may encourage some teams to go a little bit more gung-ho towards the end of the risky game weekly challenges in order to catch up and try and win first prize in the overall bootcamp. So those are our dates. Really excited to bring that to market. We'll obviously keep reiterating this over the next few days on social. We'll do our normal Twitter threads. We're on the AMA circuit too, but wanted to tell the holders directly first. So that's high level dates. Corey, do you want to say a little bit about the process we took to get here?
Yeah, I'll just repeat the dates again before sort of going through that for those those at the back, as you say. So the founder captain draw will take place on the 31st of May, player claim on Saturday, the 4th of June, and then the intention is for the first risky game to be on the 11th of June. This is a little bit later than we had planned. And that is the kind of reality of these things. And the primary reason for that is over the last few weeks, we have increasingly increased the scope of what we want to do. I think hopefully many of our holders know we're quite an ambitious team in trying to do things the right way. And we added a lot of the team dynamic elements, making sure the risky games are actually more complicated than kind of simple choices, particularly the later ones. And we really wanted to make sure we test this team behavior and this kind of Saturday behavior, because as we get into the full game, this is going to be something where, your games might be on a Saturday or once a week. And getting into that weekend cadence once or twice a week is a sort of important user behavior for us to test. And in the end, it was maybe slightly more complex. It was a bit more complex than maybe we originally planned, because we wanted to create a really good user experience. We spent a lot of time on things like, for those of you who are multiple holders, creating ways that doesn't mean you're sat there doing, 100 different transactions to customize your player. So I think, marginally a bit later than planned, but not terribly. I think a lot of that is because we didn't want to sacrifice flourish and polish to get something out the door. And I think that, and we wanted to improve the scope to make it as exciting for you as possible. We obviously, have held back on those dates because, when we say it, we mean it. So, that's where we are. And thanks, Rob, for the UX. It's worth investing in. I know we all definitely agree with that. So really, we're excited, mostly for, particularly as we get to the founders captain draw and the sort of lead up to the player claim, a lot of the information you're going to start getting in the Discord, forming the teams, appointing our community co-captains. There'll be some lore or riddles coming out about each of the venues that may help you make choices around your customization options. So, definitely don't rush to customize your player, is what I would say. Take some time, get the information in before locking those decisions in before the first risky game on the 11th of June. So super excited, super excited about that, and super excited to share those with you. I know you've all been very patient with us as we've gone through this process, but I'm sure, as you see from everything we do, polish is number one. Great experience is number one too, and that's what we want to make sure is recapped throughout all of this. Adam is going to be joining us soon. He's going to go through some of the dev elements. I know a lot of you have wanted the chance to speak to him. Adam does get a free pass, as with a now 7-week-old baby born on reveal day. For those who were there for that moment when me and Tom were trusted with the contract, a day that me and Tom panicked over a similar call like this about whether we might accidentally screw it up. He does get he perhaps is not all the demands of his baby do not necessarily always align, shall I say, with the AMA schedule. But he's actually just joined as we've spoken, so his camera's not on yet, but there he is. We're going to add him in. Adam, we were just talking about you.
Oh dear.
So Adam, we just sort of given the sort of overview of the dates and sort of why we're excited, and I know there's a few areas specifically that we wanted to go into around the kind of bridging and the batch customization, etc., that we've been doing. And I know that all our holders would love to hear from you. You're sort of this ominous presence on Discord that they know is diligently coding his way through everything possible. And I'm sure they'd love to talk about some of the cool things that I think we have done already and are doing during Bootcamp.
Yeah, sure. So I guess there are a few things to it. Like, I think a lot of it comes down to yes, I think a lot of it comes down to, I guess, the little details which can just improve your user experience, as well as some of the bigger things which we wanted to test or prove. This like with the bootcamp, which I think is a big focus of the bootcamp, is having fun but also learning as we do it. So I guess to start with, I think the bridging, this was a thing in terms of how folks would get their player NFTs. Where we took there are obviously a bunch of patterns and everything from a sort of message signing type approach, which we've used in a couple of places, versus an airdrop, versus a true bridging message passing thing, and we've opted for the last. We think that that's the purest way to do it. It means that people who maybe join or want to join the bootcamp later can do it. Like and also bridging is going to be important, like whatever L2 that we're on in the future. So that was a consideration, and it's just a bit more nuanced than doing an airdrop or copy pasting stuff that we've done before. I think then on like the user experience side, if we're bridging, we can then do a nice thing where when players are bridged, we can like essentially drip people a small amount of Matic, because we're conscious that not everyone has Matic in their wallet, in the wallet that they'd used, and we don't want to send people through the loop of, okay, you need to go and buy some Matic from here, like this is the way you do it, you need to bridge some Matic from mainnet. So again, that's like a small user experience thing, which we think is quite which we think is just quite nice.
I think that would say why to. So we're super excited about that, by the way. I don't think any project has done that, so we really, we'd rather make it as cool user experience flow as possible, so it's as seamless as it can be. Which I think comes back to your point, Rob, Martin, as you mentioned in the chat. User experience is everything, and that's how we thought about design.
Yeah, 100%. And then on that, in terms of making, I think one thing we were conscious of, and I think you maybe talked about the team aspect of the game already. And actually, this was like one of the sessions where I guess we got most excited as a team, when we were like, actually takes the bootcamp from being like a single player thing to like maybe a thing where you can like find a tribe or find a group. So I think it was kind of just inspired by some of Rupert's, like the stuff that he drew for the player cards, which like just jumped out immediately. And like then I think there's a whole like other thing that you can do around it. So bringing in teams like adds a bit of nuance. Like I think it raised some things in terms of like a lot of what with all these games, like it comes down to like how much is on chain and how much is off chain. And so like because we're an L2, we can put more stuff on chain. So actually the NFTs are going to be like, all the metadata is going to be fully on chain. The rendering of the NFT is going to be like fully dynamic based on what's on chain, and that'll change like slightly throughout the course of the bootcamp, which is quite quite a fun aspect. For various like OpenSea reasons, we'll be using like a renderer, but like everything you need to recreate the NFT will be available on chain. And like the teams was part of that as well, which again is I think, because then you get into wanting to put everything on chain, and you can go too far down that rabbit hole as well, because then that increases transaction costs. It means that you're maybe more prone to bugs, and there's actually lots of stuff that we can keep off chain and just check when you're making transactions. So that's things like essentially team performance, individual player performance is something that which we can track off chain in sort of subgraphs and those kind of things, and do checking on chain at point of transactions. So I think it's getting hopefully the right balance that we can provide like a rich user experience, say which teams are doing well, say which players are doing really well, but while also meaning the contracts are sort of legible and not getting too convoluted. And then I guess the last thing is batch flows. Like I think we're conscious that people have multiple players, they'll be engaging with multiple times, and this has I guess been the thing which as a team we've spent the most time going like back and forwards in terms of like giving people detailed information or really granular controls when they're doing batch customizations, say, versus like just wanting to get through it. And like I think there's a tension there between obviously providing a user experience that is fast and easy to understand versus one that is like a bit more powerful. And so I think that again we'll try this we'll try all our batch flows for the customization, our batch flows for the risky games. They may work well or not so well, but again, that's part of the learning that we want to do here, because we do understand that people aren't necessarily just playing player by player. And on the flip side of that, we do want to make sure the individual player experience, if you just got one player, is delightful as well. So those are some, I guess, the user experience things which we've been spending time on.
Should we, thanks, Alan, maybe we pivot to the last section before we open up to the floor, which is on tokenomics. So Corey, I can't remember who it was in the Discord, but someone came up with the line, "Are you ready for bootcamp?" And I was very annoyed that I hadn't come up with that myself. Could you explain to everyone how the tokenomics of bootcamp are going to work, and then maybe expand a little bit broader about the tokenomics of our universe more generally?
Yeah,
I think
of course.
Still online, by the way, I'm having that. I'll put that on social.
Yeah, we've already told them we're stealing it, and with no shame whatsoever. So I think it was Jolly. I don't know the exact name. And maybe after I finish this, Hannah, it'd be great for you to maybe do an intro to everybody, because they've never spoken to you before. So get emotionally prepared. So tokenomics. So the first part of tokenomics for this phase is pretty simple, in that we expect that we thought about two things. One is that we expect there to probably the number of tokens in the universe to quite quickly disappear as people are able to purchase their skill attribute boosts for strength, tackling, passing. Please also watch out for that. Eleanor and Natasha have been tirelessly animating how cool they are, and they are pretty awesome in terms of how they're going to look, which is going to be really fun for everybody. So that that's great from our perspective, from a tokenomics perspective, because we think that we are providing a sink in the world that people want. People want to upgrade their players. I know you've all been talking about it in the Discord forever, and that the tokens will be used to do that. But equally, you'll know a number of weeks ago we talked about this sort of very minor pivot, which was to say actually these attribute boosts are their own NFT, and they can be sold on OpenSea, which is important because that effectively provides a quasi liquidity element to the token at this stage. Although the intention is not to provide liquidity for readies at this stage. We are legally structured to do so, but it's not necessary given there isn't effectively an ETH out route via the NFT. Although liquidity will become necessary over time, so don't say that we're not going to do it, because we will in the slightly longer term. So that's definitely been the sort of more simple component of this, and Bootcamp is in some self-contained, where we'll be again monitoring data to understand exactly how people are behaving, which is really important to us in thinking about this. I think on tokenomics, I know I see this chat going on and off in the Discord quite a lot, and occasionally I do chime in, but maybe not all the time. Is tokenomics can sort of make or break things in their kind of right way, and we do have a few principles that we are adhering to in the sort of broader ecosystem. So one is that if we create a sink, it must be a valuable sink. I've too often been in stuff where the way they deal with token inflation, as you guys will be getting your Mars universal basic income every day, is they deal with it by creating things that absolutely no one wants to use. And that's sort of like, I've bought some food, but I don't really like it, so I'm just not going to eat it. So it's sort of irrelevant. So we want to make them very in-world and in-game sinks that are sort of meaningfully impactful in the game, but provide a level of balance. And for example, on attribute boosts, which are clearly desirable to people, you won't be able to use an infinite amount of them on your player, over a certain time period. Otherwise, we'd end up in a really complex situation of huge stat inflation, or we'd have some kind of Zeus-like player running around winning everything with thousands of stat points. I'm not sure that would be necessarily the wisest way an individual would spend their money, but you never know. And I think that's a kind of really important element of how we have thought about the integration of these, and it's also a deliberate reason about that we have made our utility token readies will be applicable across MPL and other parts of the Mars universe. So it is not a single token to a single kind of point of the game. I think the second thing is the governance token, and I know there's been a bunch of questions on this, so I will address some of them and we pick up others as we get into the questions. The governance token, there will be an airdrop to holders of the comic, a smaller portion and a larger portion to holders of NFTs. It will be per NFT, just to clarify that, not per wallet. For all of these things, and there will be minor differences between epic, rare, and common covers. But most important part of the governance token is that it will need to be used for some of the most impactful things in our game. We do want to have it as a kind of use point in the game. It won't be kind of completely absent from the game. So that might be a recruitment event, for example, where it might be used. And that's sort of really important that we give it sort of utility for the highest value, most impactful actions of the game, but also that it represents the broader value of the whole of the Mars universe and everything that sort of exists within it. We'll end up doing a whole AMA on tokenomics and so forth as we start to slowly reveal it. But what I would say is, we are effectively trying to deal with actually on a very small scale, very complicated economic forces between, inflation, demand, supply, liquidity, and so forth, common things that are dealt with in, kind of nation states at the big scale, companies at a smaller scale. It's inevitable that it will be a bit of test and learn as we kind of go through this. And, our attitude to this is do things slowly, do things that are valuable for the community and the use of the token, and make sure we're constantly providing value back sort of within that, and that will kind of manage that in the right way while keeping a very strong handle on things like inflation. One thing we don't necessarily want to do is drive incredible high staking rewards for tokens, stake token for more token, if that's just going to drive an endless amount of inflation into the economy. That doesn't mean we won't necessarily utilize that to incentivize liquidity pools, for example, but we also want to make sure we sort of manage sort of core economic variables in our universe in a way that is done. I think that the final question that was asked around things like governance token was, will this be a sort of just here's 20 governance tokens or whatever the number is, or will it be a kind of drip feed? I think there's a little bit of a decision to make on our part on that. It may be a combination of the two is right. One might be a kind of, reward for those people who've been part of the journey, and some might be drip fed, because obviously we want to not inflate the economy, not in line with kind of actions that are available in the game. So it's definitely something on our mind, and it's not something that we want to just throw into the ether and then say, good luck everybody, see you later, because otherwise what ends up happening if you don't do any small scale token emissions is you end up having to basically force staking on like a 12-month cycle with higher reward rates in order to stop them all being dumped. And that then just causes a problem. Basically, you've just delayed the problem 12 months. Like, that is the whole problem. So we need to sort of think about that quite carefully, to think about tokens maintaining value and being valuable in the ecosystem, both from a liquidity perspective, but also from a genuine utility in game and you wanting to be part of the kind of Mars universe. And obviously, increasingly over time, our governance token holders will, become part of the team almost as they, have the community treasuries and so forth over time. So lots of complex stuff going on. I appreciate that was a little bit of a ramble, so I apologize, Tom, for that. And I'm sure we'll get into some further questions from the chat. But maybe before we jump into the specific questions, we obviously welcomed Hannah right at the start here, but it'd be great maybe Hannah to say a few words about yourself, why you're so excited to work in Web3. Anything else you'd like to say? And introduce yourself to the gang.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. Hi, everyone. You warmed me up to the intro. You didn't warm me up to the exam question, but all good. So yeah, excited to be here for my first one of these. Thank you all for having me. So as Corey mentioned at the start, I have joined to lead on the product side of things with the MPL team. And I guess I've spent more years than I care to count at this point working on consumer-facing digital products. But first step into Web3, which is exciting and new, which appeals to my slightly nerdy learner side of me. I've got to say that over the last few weeks, I think it's only been a few weeks that I've been part of the team, the process here has been really rewarding, and it's been really exciting to see the designs and the technical solutions kind of really coming together for Bootcamp. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what you all think as we release some of this work over the next few weeks. And seeing what you all think, and as Adam mentioned, kind of learning and seeing what we can do better as we continue to move forward. So yeah, super excited for the next few weeks.
Thanks, Hannah. Should we get into questions? I think the first question to address is whether I have a zebra behind me with a Santa hat on, and that answer is yes. Thank you, Colonel. I won't pronounce your surname on the live stream for that question. Maybe we'll take some more from the MPL holder chat channel, and maybe I'll compare and throw it open to the floor. I'll start with maybe an easy one. Ellen, I don't know if you want to take this, but Lauren's asked what the schedule of bootcamp challenges will be. Will they be released all at once, or over the duration of the bootcamp. I think we talked a little bit about this, but maybe you could add a bit of colour to that.
Just to make sure I understand the question, it's what's the kind of cadence of release for each of the challenges? So we're definitely, it's not going to be all at once. We'll be doing them one at a time. And I think, as Corey's mentioned, we're probably going to sort of the slightly kind of laddering up in complexity. That kind of, it gives us more time to make sure that particularly some of the later ones can have some of those interesting dynamics that Corey and Adam have been talking about. But it also means that we can have fun as a community and make sure, hey Lauren, and make sure that we are kind of drip feeding our teams the best information, making sure we're giving you the edge to help you win. So hopefully we think that kind of weekly cadence is going to be exciting for all of us, and also kind of encourage us to sort of progressively explore the base camp of Mars.
Fantastic. Thanks, Eleanor. Maybe I'll take the one with the most likes, which is there a way that some of the NFT NYC merch freebie/swag can be made available to holders who cannot attend? And there's another popular question, which is, I know the AMA is focused on the bootcamp, but there's a lot of interest in merch. Ella, do you want to talk about the process we've undergone for merch and for the NYC event, and maybe where people can get hold of some stuff?
I love to talk about merch. Even though we're all like Web3, I still really love a physical thing. So some of the stuff that is going in the gift bag, we did think some of it was too nice to just only be in the gift bag. And we know that although we're very excited about NFT NYC, it kind of isn't open to everyone who isn't able to travel. So a couple of our favorite things we're hoping to be able to sell online as well to holders. And then we have a few pieces that are going to be inspired by some of our favorite traits. So some of the stuff that our Genesis characters are rocking in our original collection will be able to realize that, and they'll come to life as real pieces of merch as well. So some of the favorite hoodies. The thing that I'm probably most excited about, and I think, although there might not be a mass market for this, but I'm excited, is our knitted hats that are going to be a kind of replica of some of the ones that our Martians wear. We call them cat hats, but they're really Martian hats. But they have some fine pairs of ears. So in terms of the process that we've been on, it's very much about trying to make sure that we're bringing to life some of the favorite things that we wanted to realize from the beginning as soon as they were kind of imagined for the characters. Also, there's little bits of storytelling in there as well. You'll see a few little named Martian characters starting to pop up in places like the Notebook and on one of our tees. We're really trying to leverage the learnings that we've had in our careers so far about, how to make a collection come to life. So we're using a few different techniques in terms of there'll be some nice embroidery finishes. Our paper products are going to have some beautiful hand artisan finishes. In fact, on Friday morning, I'm popping over to meet our screen printer, and Rupert's going to be signing a bunch of pieces of paper. So I'll take some photos when I'm there and share those with you guys on Discord as well. So yeah, it's actually been an exciting week merch-wise.
You wouldn't believe the number of pictures in our Slack of whether the red is right or not at the screen printers. It's an unbelievable experience of how many reds they can do.
There's many more kinds of reds than that, Corey.
Maybe I'll take one last one directed at you, Eleanor, and then I'll chunk up some for the others. I think this is quite a fun one from Chesco. Would the 4 teams more or less equal Harry Potter houses? What are your views on that?
I think there would definitely, maybe as a group, we enjoy a bit of the sense of healthy competition. I always thought that was kind of the best bit of the Harry Potter houses anyway. But the answer is no, they're way better than Harry Potter houses. It's going to be way more fun. There's less rules. We don't have to go to school, which is a blessing.
Yeah, maybe we could just ask this one from the chat. I know you can't see this, which is about the team. Gumdal, I think, representing Wolves DAO, who are a big gaming DAO. I think we are all. Is it a coincidence, or is because? So it's not a coincidence, but that doesn't necessarily mean we worked well in the past. I guess it depends on who you ask from that experience. But me, Adam, and Tom all started our careers together at the same place, and then Eleanor, Adam, and Tom all worked with J.K. Rowling on Potter, and Hannah, sorry, as well. So there's two sort of networks here. So we do actually all know each other, and despite this, I think still like each other. But we'll see how that goes in 6 months, I guess. But yeah, we do know each other very well and have worked together in the past on different kind of stuff over time.
How do you put those questions up, Corey? That's way better than what I was doing.
Well, that's only if they ask it in YouTube.
Maybe I've got a question here for Adam in bold from Chesco as well. So maybe I'll direct that to you, Adam. Endgame, Chesco wants to move his Genesis tokens to a cold wallet that doesn't really interact with the internet. Will the bootcamp, which will be on Matic, need to see we own Genesis tokens after we use them to create our L2 players?
No. So I think that there's a that's actually something that I was looking at today, which was that folks might not want to. There are various reasons why you might not want to bridge from the same wallet you're using on mainnet to a different wallet on Matic. So I think been thinking about whether this would be part of the core flow or not, and I think probably at the outset not, but having a function which can let you bridge your players to a different wallet on Polygon, maybe a hot wallet that we use more regularly, is something that we want to make sure is possible in the contracts, because as I think as well as cold wallets that don't connect to the internet, if you're using a smart contract wallet on mainnet, that won't necessarily be deployed on Matic or Polygon. So yes, we are thinking about those things, but maybe I can pick up separately just to make sure I've understood the use case correctly there. But in general, I think that we understand that people will interact with the game and spending accounts and savings accounts as the model of hot and cold wallets within NFTs. I think is great practice in general for people. So yes, we definitely don't want people to be feeling insecure with when they're interacting with the game.
Maybe shifting to a couple of questions on marketing. So one from Rambo here that has got quite a few likes to the Discord. How does the team plan to market the project moving forward into Bootcamp? I feel like this project is still a sleeping giant, in brackets, undervalued, when you look at the quality of the team and the fact that you've kept up all the promises and more. And then there's some ideas about connecting to football teams and some disability programs and other sponsorship ideas there. Corey, do you want to talk a little bit about our plan to market Bootcamp, and maybe Eleanor, we can talk about some of the cool creative ideas we've got out there.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think this question's been asked a lot, and I think it's a good question. I think there's sort of 3 ways to think about marketing and how we're approaching it. So one is, before we sort of before we got to mint out, we approached marketing in quite a deliberate way, sort of around AMAs. We spoke to 67 communities. In that, the approach was to kind of build that confidence. And, although we did have lots of offers from professional sports people who wanted to be paid to promote us, I didn't think that was sort of necessarily the authentic way to sort of build the kind of community we do have now, that I think is like a real holder base who's very confident in the project. And you see that in our floor price, which is basically maintained despite all the ongoing drama in crypto that we've observed, sort of the tech stock collapse, UST, and so forth. I think as we kind of move into Bootcamp and we sort of get going, I mean, I think that we will be doing quite a lot of ramp up on marketing effort across socials around the teams, around some kind of pretty cool animations, trailers, and so forth that we have coming. That will continue to generate buzz, because we know that this is as much an intention game as anything. And we obviously continue to work with people like Zeneca, who's our advisor, who if you read his Discord, he So he does post about it a lot and so forth as well. So, there are different channels, but, I'm not necessarily, right now, I think that those organic partnerships with maybe professional sports people or other kind of important influence in the Web3 space, I think, will be built on the back of the oncoming social campaigns, as we continue to generate the momentum we have, and we kind of steadily hopefully see our kind of full move up as people see the kind of quality of what we're experiencing, what we're delivering here. So I think that's kind of how we thought about it, but it is very top of mind. But I will say again, I think, could we do a kind of rocket ship of marketing? Yes, probably. And there was a very kind member of the community who's also reached out. He's actually a Web2 marketing, very senior guy, who I'm sure we're going to be speaking with very shortly around that. Yes, but we also need to align that marketing with building sustainable long-term floor price or token price increases, not creating hype cycles that ultimately, I think, damage you guys as holders or people who kind of jump into the project and they can't maintain that momentum. But there is lots of cool stuff coming up, particularly over the next 2 weeks with the teams and the social assets and so forth, which maybe Eleanor, you want to sort of talk about in the trailers, and the voice of the gaffer and so forth. That's all on the kind of on the June list.
Yeah, I think that that's right. Although we're trying to act sustainably, we're still having fun. So we are working on a sort of mini trailer, nothing super long, but working with Tasha and Rupert, who have been an amazing kind of tag team, who have really come together, even though they've never met and are working in different countries, really kind of like come to understand each other's art styles. And together we're kind of telling a little bit of a story about what it was like for Gaffer to be the last one to beam up from his tool shed. So just a little snapshot of the life, a day in the life of the Gaffer there. And we will be giving the Gaffer a bit of a voice, and hopefully you'll hear a little bit from him throughout the course of Bootcamp, to just kind of start to really plow into that character a little bit more, give it a bit more depth, and just start to hear a little bit more from him. I just saw the comment there about the knitted cat hats. So that's at least 2 people that are going to be wearing that on the streets.
Order some more.
Order some more. Yeah, we've already spoken about the kind of graphic approach that we've taken for the kits. Some of the other exciting visuals that we've got coming up are going to be kind of where we start to see inside a little bit more some of the venues that we've seen on the Basecamp map. So that's going to be an interesting one, and the way that we kind of choose to visualize those environments is another kind of interesting artistic challenge as well. So those are the kind of some of the tidbits that we've got coming up.
Thanks, Eleanor. Maybe just going to kits, there's a couple of great questions from Jolly Elf here. So for clarification on L2 kits, do Godlike have to choose yellow? And secondly, in the graphic that we shared, 3 red kits are shown, but the choice was green, black, and red. Does it matter which of the 3 red kits, for example, we choose? Will they all be on red team, or will there be 3 different red teams?
There's only one red team. There's just a little bit more choice. So there's also a little bit of room for your own kind of personal flair and your own personal preference on which kit you choose. There's also a range of great shoes, and you can choose to match them or not. The shoes won't affect which color team you fall into. And you don't have to choose a yellow kit if you're Godlike, but I would if I were you, because it's special and only the Godlike holders will have access to it.
And then, Corey, there's a question here on how winning will work. So at the end of the boot camp, what happens to each of the 2 challenges we talked about, and how will a player in that team be rewarded? Do you want to talk a little bit through that?
Yeah, of course. So 2 challenges: 1 participation, 1 performance. the way that will work is that you will receive your share of the kind of pot of readies, which will be a portion, your relative portion as a kind of player. So if there's 10 players on a team and the pot is 10,000, then you will get 1,000. And the scoring will be on an average per player. So you're not disadvantaged being on a big or small team. It's all about the kind of relative, scoring for that. Godlikes are excluded from participation. Yeah, Tom shouted at me before for getting it wrong. The only for performance on the godlikes, just given it's much easier to coordinate. On that one, so that's sort of really exciting. From that perspective, and that should be a kind of really fun. And we think there'll definitely be different levels of information different people are getting in different teams, and as you kind of go after those kind of prizes. But I think there'll be a decision for you guys to make about which team do you want to be on with which founder. Those here. Obviously, you should be on my team because it will be the best. But you also may want to be on a smaller team or a larger team to potentially get a larger pot of a larger slice of the pie. So there's kind of lots of decisions to make around there. So yeah, that's kind of how it's going to work, and we're super excited for it. Indefinitely, it's going to be sort of worthwhile, doing it, because I suspect at the very least, if you're on the winning team, you'll end up having enough tokens for at least one additional attribute boost, versus if you're on the losing team. So worth spending some time coordinating about. I'm sure you all are already coordinating internally about what teams you're going to be on, or whether if you're a multiple holder, you're going to go on multiple teams or just on one team, and to sort of make those decisions going forwards.
And there are a lot of questions here about quirks and do we have any alpha for bootcamp venues and red versus green faces? And I think that's exactly the type of thing that you should ask and nag your captains about once you've elected your team. So we'll hold off from some of that information here. I think that gets us almost to the end of
I think what I'm excited about is that I'm sure people will manage to leak information, but I'm sure people will also leak information that's false. So we're going to look forward to kind of different tactics from teams. Obviously, the first thing I think of probably makes my house most equivalent to Slytherin immediately.
If anyone's following the Wagatha Christie trial in the UK, it's going to operate a little bit like that.
I'm very interested to see what information we choose to share between one another. Hope we're all still talking to each other by the end.
That's it from the Discord, Corey. Is there anything you want to pull out from the YouTube questions?
There are some good ones, such as whether we think the game will teach Frank Lampard to be a decent manager.
No.
Definitely impossible, I suspect. There's one that's been asked a couple of times about the rental system or recruiting more players. So what I would say that's not a feature of Bootcamp, that's a feature of the full game, but just to give you a bit more flavour of that from the white paper. And I think there's probably a principled answer here as well, which is we want to create an environment where people can play the game, whether they own one or multiple NFTs. Right, that is important to us. We're not going to build a successful game of scale if there's your accessibility point doesn't have multiple areas for people to go in terms of building their teams. So you'll be able to utilize your tokens potentially as we come back to that tokenomics discussion, maybe leveraging a small amount of governance token to recruit a new player into your squad, which will be a sort of Generation 1 player. That will have some level of stats. It will likely be influenced by your L1 holdings as well, as they have continual relevance in the game. And then you'll be able to sort of recruit those, and you'll also be able to loan players yourselves into your squad or rent them out to others. It may be perhaps during an 8-week season you're on holiday for quite a lot of it, and you can rent your players out to others who might want to play with them, and you get kind of a little bit of yield from that. But don't necessarily lose your kind of connection to the MPL because you don't want to sell, but you want to make sure that you still get some value out of that season. So there's definitely been examples of that being done before with places like Critters and so forth, and we'll sort of be taking some leverage in terms of doing that in a way that gives multiple ways for people to access the game. The last thing, of course, that is not directly questioned here, but is you also have to kind of fill in the rest of your squad or synthetic NFTs to make sure that even if you don't have all 11 players in your squad, you'll still be able to play the game with some kind of AI-esque players that fill in the rest of your midfield or defense or whatever it might be. I wonder whether we should maybe answer this one. Post Bootcamp going to be modelled after Football Manager or something else? I don't know, Tom, if you want to take that.
Sure. I think that the game has lots of elements of Football Manager in the sense that we want to make it sort of tactically meaningful to manage your team and sort of get to success. I think one area that we spent quite a lot of time differing from Football Manager on is this idea of having synchronous match events. So if you think about something like fantasy football or DraftKings in the US, one of the joys of that is a whole community organizing itself around an event that happens at a certain time, and all the decisions lead up to that timed event. That some other mobile Football Manager games do this really well, so they don't allow you, like Football Manager, to sort of churn through a season all at once. And so I'd say we are more to the synchronous live event end of the Football Manager scale than the Football Manager game as many of us played growing up, where you could play 10 seasons in a weekend if you didn't leave your room. That's not what we're doing.
And I think that's really important because, if we think about some of the like foundation blocks of Web3 and a lot of the space here, it is about that community feeling and that set of persistence over time. So, I am looking forward to personally building a team that can rise up the ranks and, slowly get better over time and sort of being able to build your own narrative and story associated with them. And I'm sure over time we will help build the tools for people to do that. And I'm sure I know some teams already have got their own Twitter accounts, they've got their own stories, their own art, their own badges and so forth. And that's definitely something we want to, for people to be able to play out these stories over, time. And I know there's actually, maybe sort of playing them out with their, families or kids and so forth. I know I've had quite a lot of people who are, they're quite excited to sort of make those choices alongside others on these kind of weekly cadence of game. And that is important because so much of the space is gamified DeFi rather than a game. And gamified DeFi, when you literally have to press the button every 4 hours, like there's nobody who has a job who can actually do that. And we do want to make this accessible to people who can play and enjoy the game, but without it necessarily being like a huge time suck, every week from their lives that they they feel that they're constantly behind. But we want to build sufficient depth in it that those who really want to spend a lot of time scouting their opponents can, in order to try and optimize their chance of winning. So it's trying to balance both in the right way. And that's why game design is hard, and that's why we want to spend time on it to get it right, because we know we only get one first chance, and that's, we want it to be impressive. Good. I think that is all the questions, Tom.
Yeah, I think we might be out.
I'm just double checking that we have answered everything. There's stuff about utility for comics, which is the governance token drop primarily. Do watch this space though, and all the other stuffs to come on the kind of broader content in the world. I'm sure we'll be talking about it over time, but I would say that comic is not the end of the narrative story. Is that fair, Tom?
Oh yes, very fair.
Very fair. Will owls have a major impact on gameplay? Who knows? Maybe.
Maybe we just say, we like pets. We
do like pets. We do like pets a lot.
Especially owls.
I just trying to see. Any bonus or perks for holding a complete set of comics? We've not made any decision on that, although it's quite a nice idea, but it's definitely not a decision right now. But if we do make that announcement, we will make it publicly, so people have a choice. So please don't rush to do that, unless you really want to hold all three, which of course is fine. Please then buy them. I think that's it, Tom. I think playable versus is Bootcamp playable versus on mobile? I think yes, with the limitations of the MetaMask browser.
Yeah, I think in general, we're trying to make the applications mobile friendly. Though, as Corey says, often it's the connection between the mobile website and the app.
Yeah.
I think we do know that the majority of our users have been on desktop to date, though, don't we? So we think we've got a slight desktop bias.
All right. Well, I think we've sort of covered everything. Someone has suggested we do need to sort out our POAP game for AMAs, which is probably fair. So we will sort that out going forwards. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all the questions. I think this has been really, really helpful. And a reminder, if you just tuned in terms of dates for everybody, we'll be minting. We've minted. That's done. Yeah, you'll be claiming your Genesis character players for the bootcamp. Well, let's start again. On the 31st of May, we'll be drawing the captains for who will be for each of the red, green, yellow, and black teams. We'll then have player claim will happen on the 4th of June. There'll be a lot of stuff to do in socials around the teams. What do you customize? What information? What venues do you think the challenges are going to take place in before the intended time, being for the first risky game on the 11th of June, and then moving into a kind of weekly cadence thereafter. So we're super excited about that. And I think the last thing I would probably say is for those of you that we will see at NFT NYC. We're really looking forward to seeing you there in the coming weeks. The Eleanor every day seems to be coming out with yet another merch or bar runners or something that's going to be in the bar. So we're excited. I'm excited to see them. We're really excited.
That's sorted. They're safe.
And then I think the last thing to say is, obviously, as we said, some of the goodie bag stuff will be available in the shop. And the merch, which is coming this month, I think. Merch, is that right, Tom? Ish this month.
Is this month May or is this month June?
June. Sorry, that's right. June.
We should be almost definitely there by a month's time.
And then we just remind that obviously you'll be able to claim that if you're a holder at the event. So please do sign up. If you want to come as a guest or bring a guest, that's absolutely fine. Just please let us know so we know about numbers. No goodie bag if you're not a holder, but have some drinks on the MPL is what I'd say. And we're looking forward to meeting and chatting with you all there, and maybe seeing the face behind the names in Discord. And I think with that probably closes us out. So thank you all very much for coming to listen. Thank you those who are listening to the recording, and we look forward to chatting to you on the next AMA, probably in about a week or so. Bye, everyone.